This week on The Hotel Inspector, the lady of the manor who wants it all.
Do you feel in control at all?
No.
I would not want to be incarcerated up here for 2 days. The bathrooms are really not up to snuff. You cannot punish your customers with your problems, I've learnt.
Pay VAT out of my own
Pocket. Those people are a luxury you can't afford.
Deep in the wilds of Suffolk lies Butley Priory, the home of part-time musician and former model Frances Cavendish. 21 years ago, Frances and her husband fell in love with the Priory on a trip to Suffolk. They started renting the building and helped transform the once dilapidated structure into a stylish family home.
It was very churchy and dark, and I really wanted it light and pretty, sort of make it fairy tale.
But the fairy tale took a dark turn 8 years ago when Frances's marriage came to an end.
It was a very, very dark time, and I had absolutely no money. And I just sat and reviewed my options and thought, what on earth could I do?
Because the Priory was rented, Frances feared she and her daughters would lose their beloved home. So, in desperation, Butley was converted into a 6-room B&B and wedding venue. The strategy paid off, but only just, and has yet to pay any real financial dividend.
At the moment, I regret to say we have nobody in, except about 5 staff.
The constant struggle to pay the rent impacts on Frances' real passion, her music. At 47, she's returned to college to study music part-time.
In an ideal world, music would come first in my life. But everyone has to have a day job, or I have to have a day job.
So Frances employs 2 cleaning ladies, a B&B manager and a wedding planner to run the business in her absence.
Hello, Butley Priory.
I do seem to need an awful lot of people to keep it up to standard.
With punishing overheads and crippling staff costs, Frances is straining to stay afloat.
If we don't get more guests through the door, I'm going to have to call it a day and move out. I'm afraid that's the bottom line.
But she's determined not to lose the home she loves without a fight.
I probably thought about it every single day. Can I go on doing this? Or should I just accept what looks like defeat?
Her last roll of the die is to call on expert hotelier and renowned troubleshooter Ruth Watson.
This is truly stunning. Absolutely amazing building. And to my shame, it's only 3 miles down the road from the Crown and Castle where we have our own hotel. Frances and I know each other, but I've never been here before. And my God, the potential is enormous. It's fantastic.
But the potential has never been realised. Without prompt action, Frances and the B&B will become just another chapter of the Priory's long history.
Ruth!
Hello. How very nice.
Ruth wants to find out more about how Frances manages the B&B and why such a seemingly beautiful building is failing to attract sufficient business.
How do people find out about you? How do they know you're here?
The website is our biggest thing.
Yeah.
It's really our only thing.
How else, apart from your website, do you market your weddings?
We don't, actually. I've only just got a full-time wedding organiser, Natalie.
Ah, so you have got somebody doing about weddings.
She basically runs everything, to be honest.
So she looks after all the B&B bookings that come in?
Candice and her do those together.
Who's Candice?
Candice does a certain amount of cleaning the rooms. She makes the breakfast and takes the B&B bookings.
Right. So you said a certain amount of cleaning the rooms. There's other
Well, I
people?
have other people as well, yes.
What do you do, Frances?
I really don't do much at all because I really want to pursue my other interest, which is music.
Do you feel in control at all?
Not of the finances, no.
So this place is really a bit the rudderless ship, isn't it?
I do, I think, have perhaps more input than you realise in terms of deciding what we have here.
Look and feel. But you don't want to do anything that actually sort of dirties your hands, as it were. My immediate thought from all of this is that to actually be employing an Atelier person, a Cavendish person, cleaning people for a place this size and saying, I actually don't do much myself, those people are a luxury you can't afford.
To get a guest's eye view of the Priory, Ruth will stay overnight.
Have you ever thought about hiring this out for shoot locations, you know?
It's yet another thing I've thought about, but I must admit I haven't got round to doing, no.
Frances has booked Ruth into a premium room, the grandly named West Wing, with an equally grand price. A night's B&B costs £175. Guests paying that much should expect first-class facilities, toiletries and state-of-the-art bathrooms.
What a beautiful, huge, romantic, lovely room. Completely see why you think it's worth £175. I'm not entirely sure I agree with you yet because I need to look at bathrooms and things.
Fair enough.
But it does on first sight look very, very stunning, really does.
Yes,
very lovely.
Thank you.
Yeah. There's no doubt that this room is incredibly gracious. I mean, it's got beautiful proportions and it's utterly charming. The problem is, has it got the facilities you need? Over here, we've got one of my bête noirs, UHT milk with really cheap little instant coffee things. Over here, I mean, bedside water, that's lovely, but it's in a plastic bottle, not a glass bottle. This is not the kind of scenario you expect for £175.
So far, Ruth is not convinced the rooms are worth the price Frances is charging. But how will Frances deal with Ruth's frank opinion?
Has nobody else ever said, I can't wash my hair, I'm going out tonight, or I've got a wedding tomorrow?
You know how polite people are.
They are, on the whole. I'm not.
This is Butley Priory, a 6-bedroom B&B in the wooded heathlands off Suffolk's coast. For the last 21 years, it's also been the family home of Frances Cavendish, a former model and passionate musician. But Frances is in trouble. Her finances are in such dire straits that her residency at Butley Priory may soon be a thing of the past.
If we don't get more guests through the door, I'm going to have to call it a day and move out. I'm afraid that's the bottom line.
In a last bid to hold on to her beloved home, she's called on expert hotelier Ruth Watson. She's already established the Priory's marketing is woefully inadequate, and the rooms may be overpriced at a hefty £175 per night. Ruth's inspection of the West Wing reveals an unusual bathroom arrangement. The ensuite is at the bottom of a steep flight of stairs.
Well, I can instantly see the problem that I'm going to have with this bathroom because it has absolutely no shower facility whatsoever. I do think not being able to wash your hair is pretty serious.
Next, Ruth heads to the Moroccan room, the smallest at the Priory, priced at £130 per night.
This is called the Moroccan room, and there's a little bit of curtaining and cushion as a gesture. The first thing I see, though, is the fact that there's a small double bed and there is nowhere on the other side to get into it. The other part of the room is literally the ensuite. I've got a wash hand basin here with a cracked basin and cracked tiling. And I've got a tub here with nowhere to put anything. Very Moroccan.
The Priory doesn't have a lounge, bar or restaurant, so guests must spend all their time in their room.
I would not want to be incarcerated up here for 2 days. I personally would be very peeved.
The following morning, Frances is nervous about what lies ahead.
I did wake up this morning thinking, oh no. Today's the day when I'm going to get mashed up.
In the kitchen, housekeepers Christine and Joyce are helping B&B manager Candace to prepare breakfast.
Candace is feeling very nervous this morning about cooking breakfast, and normally she's fine and everything, goes well, but this morning, as Ruth Watson is here, it's a bit scary.
bit nerve-wracking, so I don't want you to think the food's not cooked properly.
Oh, good morning,
Hello,
Ruth.
Frances, how are you?
Very well, how are you?
Yes, not so bad at all, thank you.
Did you sleep well?
As well as can be expected. I'm not the greatest traveller.
No. Although nobody's bed is quite like your own,
No,
is it?
it isn't.
I
It
agree.
isn't.
Breakfast at the Priory is served in the splendour of the Great Hall.
This is possibly the nicest room I've ever had breakfast in. The light's flooding and it's just a joy. Fresh flowers on the table. Love the fact that all the jams and marmalades in the pots and the butter's real. So far, very lovely.
It's like having your worst kind of headmistress. It's there the whole time, isn't it?
I think some cooking lessons are required. Scrambled eggs are a bit lumpy looking, and these sausages might be very tasty, but they're quite little and chipolata-like. They're very tasty. Actually, they're lovely. But definitely eats better than it looks.
I thought that was pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, well done. Well done.
The Great Hall is used as a venue for weddings, so Ruth is keen to explore the gardens, a key component of any successful bridal venue.
There's a framework to these gardens with the beech hedge, but the internal part of the garden really lets things down. Frankly, it's quite scruffy. The focal point is not a focal point, it's really rather grim. And there's scruffy bits like fallen masonry here. What I think the problem is for any potential bride is to see exactly where her photographs would be taken. So I think we've got to look at this and provide a focal point, somewhere where the bride can say, yes, this is where I'm going to stand and this is where I'm going to look truly beautiful.
Recently, Frances has employed a wedding planner to try and improve the flagging sales. Natalie has been in the post for 3 months, but her working relationship with Frances has seen a few teething troubles.
Have you had any moments where you've wanted to get Frances on board with an idea? Have you got some ideas that you'd like her to pick up with and run and that she doesn't want to, or she holds you back? Or...
No, I've had plenty of ideas about events that we can hold here and sort of residential courses that we could have here. So it's just having the opportunity to actually sit down and discuss them and find out whether Frances wants to go through with them or not.
Right. Do you think the reason she's not sitting down discussing them is that she's basically sort of slightly frightened of going that other step and doesn't really want people in the building?
Possibly. It's quite hard to see 80 people sprawled all over the place, being sick and you know, wrecking your home. It's quite hard. So I think there can be a bit of reticence between actually wanting all these people in the home where you've actually raised your family.
At the end of the day, the whole purpose is for Frances to be able to live here.
Armed with a clearer understanding of the business, Ruth sits Frances down to discuss her experience at the Priory, starting with her bedroom, the West Wing.
If I just briefly tell you about my experience as a guest, in the West Wing, there is just absolutely no facility for washing your hair. I mean, that's the room you're charging $175 for. No argument with the bedroom at all, it's beautiful. But I do have a big issue with the bathroom. Has nobody else ever said, I can't wash my hair, I'm going out tonight, or I've got a wedding tomorrow? Or...
You know how polite people are.
They are, on the whole. I'm not.
As the facilities aren't up to scratch, Ruth wants to discuss the prices.
How many rooms have you sold at 175?
You'll have to ask Candice and Thingy, because we literally haven't done it since December because we had to pay this enormous VAT for the first time bill.
Yeah, you cannot punish your customers with your problems. That's another thing.
Well, I can't pay VAT out of my own
I understand
pocket.
that, but it is far better to have 4 rooms sold 80% of the time at £130 than it is 4 rooms sold at £175 at 25% of the
Yes,
time.
I see what you mean.
It's become clear that Frances's main priority is to safeguard her home and make enough money to pursue her music. Ruth needs to come up with a tactic that will motivate this reluctant businesswoman.
The feeling I get more and more is that this is somewhere you want to live, it's somewhere that you need to derive an income from, but the love of this business is not coursing in your veins, right?
No.
And at first I was a little miffed about this. Then I started to think, right, okay, let's get over this. Let's get over this point. I had to get over it as well as you have to get over it. So how can we do this? How can we get Frances to be living in her beloved building? sharing it a bit, but not to the point where she actually feels resentful about it. I'm building up to the big thing here. What I'm proposing is that you don't actually do B&B at all.
Oh, good Lord.
If this place is used for functions, events and weddings that actually produce a large amount of revenue, it frees you up totally to do the music thing, and it gives you back the house totally for yourself outside those specific days.
But if Butley's to work as a location, the featureless garden needs some work.
There's certain aspects of the garden specifically, which I want to talk to you about, where I think we could really major on photo ops for brides and things and say, look, could this be transformed, this little corner into something that's wonderful, the weddings, and, you know, that photographs can be taken of and used in the brochure, whatever we're going to do. Does that sound at all exciting?
Well, it does. It sounds absolutely thrilling, actually.
Ruth's plan would mean big changes at Butley. Most importantly, Ruth wants Frances to start to phase out the B&B and focus on lucrative events, weddings and location work instead. This could free Frances up to concentrate on her music instead of dealing with the day-to-day work of the B&B.
Ruth just left and I'm completely flabbergasted and mind-blown by what she said, actually.
But until Frances can afford to phase the B&B out altogether, she needs to make it more appealing. Ruth wants her to lower her prices, pay greater attention to detail in the bedrooms, and improve the quality of the bathrooms. Finally, if Butley's to succeed as a venue, then the grounds need work. Ruth wants to replace the bare lawns with a distinctive garden that'll look good in photographs. This should encourage people to use the Priory for money-spinning weddings and shoots. But first, Frances will need to be taken on by a location agency that would promote the Priory to the film, television and photographic industries. Sarah Eastall runs her own location business. She's come to assess whether the Priory is a suitable candidate to go on her books.
Saw you coming.
It's Sarah.
No.
It's vital the Priory and Frances make a good impression.
This is the Great Hall.
It is, isn't it?
It is great,
It's rather,
isn't it? Yeah.
It's rather lovely. It's beautiful vaulted ceiling.
I'm really excited about the ground floor of the property particularly. The light is great, the vaulted ceilings are wonderful, the scale of the building is terrific. It's got that shabby chic air. All in all, I'm pretty positive.
Yeah, I'm beginning to look at the whole place in a bit of a different way, with a bit of a different focus, and I'm thinking much more about the place as a location. I do feel apprehensive because I don't know anything about it. So yeah, I'm kind of a bit worried, a bit excited, both.
Finally, Sarah views the gardens, an area where Ruth has voiced concern.
The garden's not really showing the majesty that the property itself has. It's a bit small, it's a bit tired, there aren't many features, there are things that are brown and they're going to remain brown for many months. So from that point of view, it would be good to get that sorted out a little bit.
Sarah has made her decision.
What do you reckon?
Well, I think certainly the exterior and the ground floor are absolutely terrific. Upstairs is a little bit more tricky. The garden isn't the prettiest in the world. But what I'd like to say yes, you know, we'd like to take you on, we'd like to promote you and just see how it goes. I can't guarantee, obviously, to get you business, but I would like to have a darn good try.
Fantastic.
Okay.
It's more than okay with me.
With a bit of clever marketing, a bit of pushing, I would like to think we could attract some crews down here.
With so much at stake and with Natalie a relative novice in the wedding planning game, Ruth has whisked her 30 miles down the road to Le Talbot, an established and successful wedding venue. Each year, Le Talbot turns over millions of pounds of wedding business, and Ruth thinks Butley could benefit from their expertise.
I've only ever worked at Butley Priory, so from my point of view, from personal experience, it'd be great to see how another wedding venue functions.
Hello, Paul. Can I introduce Natalie.
Pleased to meet you.
And
welcome.
Paul is the master of weddings. The Talbot, they absolutely know what they're doing, and I hope he's going to share some of his great knowledge with you.
Fantastic.
Natalie's got some questions, I think, to ask you.
Yes, I have.
Firstly, you've got to project the total confidence of the business to look after this. People are naturally nervous. This may be the one party in their life that they're going to spend this sort of money on. So getting that material out there in the marketplace that really sells your property and the USPs that you've got, whether it be the beauty of the building, the quality of the food or whatever, that's really the important thing.
The gardens at Le Talbot are vital to their success, so Paul is keen to stress the importance of a venue's appearance.
If you've got unsightly areas, you need to fence them off, and because people are very, very fussy, and quite rightly so. I mean, ultimately, you hope that the quality of what you do is the thing that talks.
For Natalie, the visit has brought home Butley's failings.
Being able to compare Butley to somewhere such as Le Talbot has been really useful. The fact that their gardens are so beautifully presented, and ours, while they're very nice, can be a little bit wild and don't necessarily present many photo opportunities.
And it's not just Butley's gardens that aren't up to standard.
I think Frances is going to have to learn how to make a decision about how she runs her business with a much more business-like head on her shoulders.
Back at Butley, Frances is also reviewing the gardens. Ruth has asked designer Frankie Shrapnel to help make the grounds more of a feature. It will be her task to inject some excitement and glamour into the space.
This is the area where you want to make the garden.
Yes, Ruth thought, and she's right, there isn't sort of anything at all happening here.
Well,
What do you think?
it's ideal in a way because you've already got a formal structure to it. You've got yew hedges here. If we made sort of like a little enclosed space with some more yew hedging.
Oh, I see.
And within that
That's nice.
space, we had some pavings. And I think
How exciting.
if we had an ironwork, some kind of structure, very, very simple structure to train some plants over it.
Oh, really?
So that you have a sort of like an arbor effect. So, you can pick up the shapes, the wonderful shape of the architecture of the building.
I'm quite relieved, actually, because I think I think what she's got in mind is going to be quite nice, and I'm totally glad she isn't going to come up with a couple of gnomes in a water feature.
Butley's gardens may be looking rosy, but only time will tell if the Priory can make it as a successful venue. Will the team be able to cope with their first function under Ruth's watchful eye?
Where's the activity? All I see are people putting up fucking fairy lights.
For the past 21 years, Frances Cavendish has been a tenant at Butley Priory. 8 years ago, after her divorce, she was forced to turn her home into a B&B in order to pay the rent. But the business failed to take off, and with debts rapidly mounting, Frances has turned to expert hotelier Ruth Watson for help. But Ruth quickly realised that Frances's heart doesn't lie in being a landlady.
What do you do, Frances?
I really don't do much at all because I really want to pursue my other interest, which is music.
So Ruth's strategy has been to gently wean Frances off the B&B and get her to concentrate on more profitable events, weddings and location work.
What I'm proposing is that you don't actually do B&B at all.
Oh, good Lord!
Ruth is back at Butley to give Frances some news. To get her used to the Priory being a location, Ruth has arranged a bridal magazine fashion shoot.
We're working with a very, very glossy wedding shoot. And while you wouldn't get any revenue for it, what you would get was fantastic exposure. It's going to take place here within the next month.
Really?
Yes.
With the shoot in just a few weeks, Ruth is also keen to discuss the plans for Butley's new garden.
Oh, that's great.
And there's going to be this lovely sort of pergola.
Yes, yeah.
I like the shape of this cross. It's very kind
that's
of
very
nice and
yes.
ecclesiastically.
And it is, doesn't it?
Isn't
it
it?
echoes the feeling of the building. Well, that looks as if it's going to be a winning plan.
I'm so excited about it.
So far, Ruth's approach has been to gently persuade the reluctant landlady to do more for her guests, but she's still concerned that Frances is charging far too much.
Have you reconsidered the idea of perhaps dropping the bed and breakfast element in order to give you back a life?
Yes, I've considered it and am considering it daily, but I don't see how financially we would ever actually be able to do that.
What I would say to you loud and clear, though, is that if you are going to continue with the B&B, I really think that you've got to embrace it more wholeheartedly. If I'm going to be really blunt, you can't be greedy about it. You can't have it both ways.
No.
You've just got to raise your ante on that,
Yes.
and lower your prices a bit.
And do it one way or the other, yes.
Yeah.
OK, Ruth.
Yes,
Point
okay.
taken.
But despite Ruth's words, Frances still seems reluctant to lower her prices.
I'm not greedy by nature, but I'm just incredibly conscious of the bills and having to make ends meet here. But, you know, the overdraft is not noticeably shifted. So, you know, I need to take what I can get.
Frances has to market Butley as a venue for functions if the business is to survive. So plans are afoot to open the Priory up to the public. A free jazz concert in the garden could give hundreds of potential customers a chance to see what Butley has to offer. Planned for the same day as the location shoot, it could be a turning point for Frances's fortunes. But will her love of music come before the business? With both events taking place in just 4 weeks, Branky Shrapnel is starting work on the gardens.
I'm a bit apprehensive. I hope they're not going to make too much mess, actually.
The centrepiece of the design is an arbour made of cast iron.
Beautiful. It's very simple and direct and plain and minimal.
It's been delivered in one piece and it weighs a ton.
Have you tried lifting it?
No.
Lift it.
Oh, my God. I see what you mean. Your problem, Frankie.
But while the garden's in a state of change, some things remain the same. After weeks of mulling over Ruth's words, Frances has decided not to lower her prices.
Ruth thought that we were too expensive. At the moment, the prices haven't changed.
It's mad to bring the prices down when people seem to be perfectly happy paying them at the weekends. So I'm a bit reluctant to bring them down because I would argue with her on that point. And I think people actually, you know, pay a lot of money to come for the whole experience. It's not just the bedroom and the bathroom.
Frances is still Frances. Her first passion is music, and she's learning to become a businesswoman. She needs time for ideas to sink in and things get implemented slowly.
But time is a luxury Frances and Butley no longer have.
I was looking at the bank statement again this morning, and I need to be fully booked most of the time.
Her ultimate decision will be she'll do what she believes is right for her, I think, rather than the business.
It's a beautiful May morning in Suffolk, 3 months since Ruth first arrived at the Priory. A pivotal day lies ahead for Butley. The Priory is to host a fashion shoot for a bridal magazine throughout the day.
They're coming to do a shoot here of hopefully some very gorgeous models in some very beautiful dresses, and they're going to be using Butley Priory as their location for the day.
And in the evening, Frances and her jazz band will be playing a free concert for locals in the grounds. Making the public aware that the building can be used as a venue could drum up more business. With so much at stake, it's crucial the day runs as smoothly as possible. So Ruth has arrived to offer her guidance. But first, she's keen to view the finished garden with Frances and its designer. The once barren lawn is now a secluded courtyard filled with cherry blossom, making it a pleasant spot for guests to relax in the shade of the trees. The medieval priory is now complemented by the steel arbour, which echoes its elegant arches. It's provided the garden with the strong focal point that had been lacking.
Wow. Well.
Isn't it so
Frankie, this is a triumph.
It is, isn't it?
Have people seen it already? Are they pleased with it?
They love it, yes. And when the brides come to look around at the weekends, they nearly always say, "Ooh, can we get married in it?"
In it?
Yes.
Oh, well, I can understand why. You know, you just feel there's something very special about this.
Oh, yes, did you know we're calling it the Poet's Garden, Ruth?
The Poet's Garden?
what's
That's
so?
terribly romantic.
The garden will be featured in the first photo shoot later in the day. The bedrooms are overflowing with bridal paraphernalia, while in the West Wing, the models are being made up. But for now, photographer Susanna is trying to find a good location inside the Priory.
Hi Susie, have you got everything you need at all? Or,
Yeah, I don't need anything. We're just trying to find the best place to photograph without the light coming through the window, so...
Despite the importance of the shoot, Frances is conspicuous by her absence. Ruth is concerned that Natalie's not getting the support she needs on such a vital day.
Now, how has Frances been coping with all this? Or is it you that's been doing all the coping?
Frances has been taking on her fair share, I have to say. Her main priority at the moment is obviously her performance tonight.
Sure. Do you think long-term she's going to be able to cope with the fact that there will be quite a lot of days when this place is actually heaving with parties and people enjoying themselves?
I'm not sure, to be truthfully honest. She looked at the diary yesterday and sort of almost reeled back in horror at how busy we were going to be, but is obviously quite pleased at the same time.
It's always been one of my concerns, and I've said it to Frances, I'm going to say it again, is that she can't be greedy about this. You know, you cannot have it both ways. You're either going to take the money and you're going to have lots of business and you're going to have lots of profit, but the downside is you've got to share your house with some strangers.
The photo shoot is finally underway, but it's not going entirely to plan.
Do you want the silver or the white? No, it's gone right round. It's right round there.
Today we were aiming to do 8 dresses, which is what we'd normally do in a day. The sun, though, has been very harsh. The midday sun, when we started shooting, was probably giving us too much contrast, light and shadow, so we had to wait. So we've sort of lost a couple hours shooting time.
But the shoot is finally picking up pace, unlike the preparations for tonight's jazz picnic. The event is meant to sell Butley to hundreds of potential customers. But with no sign of Frances, Natalie and Candace are left to make sure everything's in place. In less than 5 hours' time, over 120 people are due to descend upon the garden. Ruth is concerned.
Where's the activity? You cannot hold an event of this magnitude without serious underpinning and structure. All I see are people putting up fucking fairy lights. Natalie's a great girl. I just hope she has got this under control, because at the moment I'm not seeing any of the sense of activity that you would normally see for an event this size.
The plan had been for the guests to picnic outside as the sun sets, watching Frances and her band play. But it's early May and there's a chill in the air, so Frances has elected to perform inside the warmth of the Great Hall, out of sight of her guests.
Now, the music. I see it's set up here, and I'm rather concerned because you have 120 people coming. We're assuming it's going to be lovely out there, but it does get colder in the evening even when...
Well, that's what I thought. That's why I thought we'd set it up in here. And then at 8:30, when we start playing, I was hoping somebody would announce that the band is going to start playing, and if anybody wants seats, please come in.
Right. There's obviously nothing like enough seating for 120 people. You're in danger of alienating half of your audience. I really think that the music should be there.
I think you're going to get lost at the back of the hall. I think you should be there and sort of the entrance where everyone can sit. Yeah.
We're thinking...
To death.
I think this is almost symbolic of where the whole problem of you as a hotelier lies. You want it to be the way you want it to be, and unfortunately those 120 people have all got in their minds...
For my convenience,
yes,
primarily.
The words came out of her own mouth.
OK,
just give in, Frances.
I agree that I'm probably going to have to give in.
Don't forget, this is not just an ego trip, it's not just a lovely evening of music. You're here to
Definitely
sell
not.
Butley.
Yeah.
Time to sell the idea to the reluctant businesswoman.
I mean, can't you just see it? The band's all out here, and you are focal, right in the middle of the thing. Frances, this is my house, you're here, lit. To segregate the audience and to have one half of them feeling hard done by and the other half having a wonderful time is not the way to promote this place. And that, let us not lose sight, that's what we're doing.
Yes, that is what we want them to think. in the long run.
Okay, take your sunglasses off and tell me that.
Yes, Ruth, that is what we are aiming at.
Good.
Frances has finally conceded defeat.
Get this, we are playing outside now. They've decided they do want us outside.
Now Natalie has to accelerate the pace. There's a lot to do and time is slipping away.
I'm feeling pretty calm considering things are going to be starting in an hour and a half or so. At the moment, we're waiting for the musicians to arrive so that they can shuffle everything around.
But despite the amount of work that needs to be done, Frances is nowhere to be seen.
It doesn't surprise me that Frances has gone for a nap. She's probably having a power nap and trying to calm her nerves before things get going tonight.
The person most noticeable for her absence is Frances. And yeah, I know she's worried about her performance tonight. At the moment, it's too much about Frances and her piano and not enough about the business of Butley. And I just think increasingly that the three things, Butley Priory, Frances and work, are just incompatible.
With Frances napping and the musicians yet to arrive, Ruth takes matters into her own hands and moves the equipment outside. And to further complicate matters, the team from the wedding magazine have yet to photograph the new garden.
Yeah.
They've been waiting for dusk to exploit the best light.
That's lovely. And flick that hair back a little bit.
6 o'clock, about an hour to go. Things are hotting up. There are signs of activity. Thank God the musicians have arrived. So the real problem, though, is behind me is the photo shoot, which I think should have finished about 2 hours ago and is still going strong. So it's like having 2 wedding parties clashing at the same event at the moment.
With less than 2 hours to kick off, Frances has finally put in an appearance.
I need a strong man at my side at all times.
Amidst the predicted chaos, another surprise.
No.
About 55 minutes to go, and guess what? The first guests have arrived. Frances' only concern is the musicians and, whether they're happy and where all the equipment's going. And of course she needs to do that, I wouldn't deny it for the world. But I think we're running a parallel event here. One is music and Frances and playing the piano, and the other one is something that's meant to be selling the wonders of Butley Priory. It's slightly distressing.
But I see that people have already turned up. It's not even quite 6:30, and they've been invited for 7:30.
Hello, my name is Morris.
Natalie's evening is moving into overdrive. The guests are flooding into the makeshift car park and streaming through the poet's garden.
Well, find yourself a spot, and there's tea and coffee, and there's a bar available as well, so make yourselves at home.
Despite the plummeting temperature, the guests seem untroubled, including Ruth.
Well, I'm pleased to say that the British gung-ho spirit is in full evidence tonight. Bitterly cold, but everyone's here, huddled up, having a great time. I have got the look, the Gore-Tex gloves, and the glass of champagne, as every British picnicker should have.
As the crowds take their place, Frances has yet to get ready for her performance.
I haven't got changed yet, but I'm not playing till 8:30, so I think that'll be all right.
A substantial crowd has now gathered on the lawn of the Priory. Each of the 120 guests could be a potential customer. The moment of truth has arrived, but will Frances be able to pull it off?
I'm starting to feel a bit shit scared right now.
For the past 4 months, Ruth Watson has been trying to guide Butley Priory, a luxury B&B in Suffolk, out of financial trouble. Ruth wants to steer the business away from B&B towards the more lucrative wedding and event market. The Priory has been used as a location for a fashion shoot in a bridal magazine. But now it's time for the main event. 120 people are gathered together on the Priory's lawn for a jazz performance. If they're impressed with Butley as a venue, it could be a turning point for Frances and the business. There's everything to play for.
I just wish I could be somebody who has a normal, nice, quiet life. A 9-to-5 job, going home in the evening and watching telly. That sounds a very nice option to me at the moment. I think we'd better go out and play them some music. I'm starting to feel a bit shit scared right now. Thank you so much. My baby gone away. He done me wrong. He's the one who wakes the
But will the Priory inspire anyone enough to hire it out?
I'd certainly had thought of hiring Butley Priory for an event. It's perfect. It's a fine venue. Look at these flint walls. Let's really look at the trees around us. Listen to the birds. That's really good.
It's absolutely outstanding.
Just a fabulous atmosphere here.
Yes. It's so romantic place to get married. I recommend it to everyone.
But what does Ruth think?
She's passionate about her music. It's the only thing I've seen her passionate about. She revels in it. She loves it. This is quite obviously her life. Of course, the problem for me as a hotelier is that I've wanted her to actually take on that role, and I don't think it's ever going to happen, to be quite honest. The best hope is that Natalie hangs on in here. Everything can be successful here. Maybe it has to be successful without Frances.
The following morning, and Ruth is back for the last time. She's eager to find out from Natalie if the event has sparked any interest.
Hello, Natalie. Morning.
Hello.
Wow, that seemed to go very well last night, didn't it?
I think it was a roaring success.
Yeah?
I had numerous people approach me last night about all sorts of events that they'd like to hold here.
Yeah.
And then somebody else said, oh, my daughter's a fashion editor of a certain magazine and this would be fabulous for a location shoot.
I am concerned, though, that looking at the website, the rates are still stonkingly high.
I know. I would agree with you, Ruth.
Have you spoken to Frances about it?
Candice and I have spoken to Frances about it because we lose quite a bit of business.
Yeah. I do need to talk to her about that because I don't want her bleating about, oh, but, you know, I can't lose the B&B, but actually the B&B isn't doing very well, but when it's so obvious.
In 4 months, it appears there's been little progress with the prices. Ruth has tracked Frances down to the Great Hall for one last discussion.
There are various reasons for lack of B&B business, but I'm telling you that the price is far, far and away the most telling factor. You're just not going to get the people in. It's too expensive for what you're offering. It doesn't matter that the room's beautiful and the light's beautiful and the bed linen is wonderful. It's just such an off-putting figure. And I want you to look at it in a really practical manner.
I haven't charged less than £150 for the last 3 years.
Yes, but what has your occupancy been, Frances? You can charge what you like. You can charge 250 quid, £500 a night. If it's an empty room, it's meaningless.
OK, Ruth, well, we'll try it.
I don't see what you've got to lose.
No.
Frances has surrendered her stubborn position on pricing, but Ruth has one final point she wants to drive home.
The biggest problem I have as a straightforward hotelier is that you are so not. And it's not something
I don't pretend to be a fantastic businesswoman hotelier, but I, at the same time, would like the business to be successful enough to enable me to continue living here as a musician. It's a bit of a lot to ask, I know.
It isn't a lot to ask as long as you don't get greedy about it.
Yes,
this is the real number one thing. I understand that music is your life. I understand that hotel keeping isn't. But you can't have your cake and eat it. You've got to be giving something back, and that giving something back is allowing people in your building. Do you feel mentally that you've made any progress in accommodating the idea that you have to share this house with people if you're going to get an income from it?
Yes, I want to share this house with people. Please come in.
Keep that in your head. Look at that person. You're paying my bills.
Yeah, absolutely. You're enabling me to you know, carry on my musical life, which is the way I try and look at it. I'm really feeling that this can and will work.
For the moment, keep in touch.
I
Phone
will.
me up.
Yes,
Okay,
thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Very much.
Great
so much.
Very good luck.
It really
Very good
has
luck.
been such a help and
Well, I hope so.
inspiration having you.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Take care.
I should be quite sad to see Ruth go, you know, compared to how I was feeling in January and to how I was feeling last night. I'm like two different people. It's been very illuminating.
With Frances there's always going to be the dichotomy. How does she balance the fact that she wants to stay living here, she needs the income, but she's got to act a little bit more like a hotelier? She assures me that that's the case and that she's learnt a lot. I have a few doubts, but I really hope so, because she does love it here, and the music last night was fantastic, and I wish them all every success.